Reacting to the latest terrorist attack, I'm Brian Lilly with Rebel.media. I'm not even sure how I can personally react to what happened in Brussels. These events are becoming far too common. We call out for vengeance. We call out for an understanding of who our enemy truly is, and those calls fall upon deaf ears. Still, Foreign Affairs Minister Stéphane Dion got in front of the cameras early this morning and denounced what had happened in Brussels and thankfully called it a terrorist attack.
We strongly condemn today's awful terrorist attacks in Brussels. Our thoughts are with the victims, and we stand with our friends, Belgium, and the whole of Europe to help and prevent terrorism here and abroad, and to bring to justice those who are responsible for planning and carrying these senseless acts.
A few hours later, following a cabinet meeting, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau came down and told reporters again this was an act of terror and that Canada stood with Belgium.
What happened today in Brussels was an act of terror. It was violence directed at innocent civilians, and its goal was to take lives and instill fear. This cannot and will not be tolerated. Canada strongly condemns these cowardly attacks and stands with Belgium at this most difficult time.
What Trudeau did not say, what Dion did not say, what very few Canadian politicians will say, is that this is the work of Islamofascists, that this is the work of jihadis intent on bringing about a return of the caliphate, a return to Islamic dominance over large parts of Europe, hey, the whole world if they can take it. Instead, there is a talk of terrorism, there is a talk of extremism, but there's no real acknowledgement of who the enemy is and who we're fighting. Then even within question period, when Rona Ambrose, the interim Conservative leader, asked the Liberals would they reverse promised changes to Bill C-51, the anti-terror bill that allows CSIS and the RCMP to disrupt terror plots rather than just investigate them after the fact, the Liberals' answer was essentially no.
During the election campaign, the Prime Minister and the Liberal Party campaigned to get rid of certain anti-terrorist measures that the Conservatives brought in to disrupt and prevent terrorist networks. Our security forces have now said that they've used these tools successfully to disrupt terrorist activity here in Canada. So will the Prime Minister reverse his position and ensure that we maintain these tools so our security forces can keep Canadians safe from terrorism?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, during the election campaign, the commitment was very clear that we would do everything in our power to make sure that our security and police services were effective in keeping Canadians safe, and at the same time, the Canadian values, rights, and freedoms were thoroughly and properly respected. There is no contradiction between those two positions.
What we have here is an unwillingness of our political class to admit what's going on. They don't want to seem insensitive. They don't want to stoke fears of Islamophobia. Those fears are unfounded. As I said after the stabbing incident at the Toronto Canadian Armed Forces Recruitment Centre, it's not Islamophobia that we have to worry about. The last time I heard about an attack, it was about a shooting at a Muslim cemetery. That turned out to be gang-related. It had nothing to do with Islam. It had to do with rival gangs arguing over turf with bullets. We have a real problem in that the West is at war, and the West won't admit that it is at war. France's President François Hollande has apparently said that Europe is at war with ISIS. That's something the Trudeau government is loath to admit. That is something that they don't want to deal with, whether it is admitting that they have essentially pulled out of combat or that they refuse to call what's happening to Christians, Yazidis, and Shiite Muslims under ISIS genocide. All of these things tying together. It is a refusal to admit the reality that is before them. It is a refusal to just say, believe your lying eyes. Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are playing a political game, unfortunately, and they're not alone, and Conservative politicians have done this as much as liberal politicians. It seems to be what goes with being in power. You don't admit the truth that is before you. You try and obfuscate. Maybe this is why Donald Trump is doing so well in the polls right now. People feel, whether it's true or not, people feel that he'll just cut through the crap. And right now we need someone that will cut through the crap. Perhaps my favorite reaction to what I saw this morning, the terror attack in Belgium, in Brussels, was a takeoff on the Je suis Charlie. That meme that we saw go around when Charlie Hebdo, the French satirical magazine, was attacked. Everyone held up signs that said, Je suis Charlie. This one just said, Je suis sick of this, and then a word that I'm not going to repeat. We need someone that's willing to stand up and tell the truth on this. And the truth is that we are at war with at least a faction of Islam. A faction of Islam that believes in a return of the caliphate, a faction of Islam that believes that bringing Islam back into ascendancy, into dominance, is their goal. That's what these attacks are about. That's what ISIS is about. That's what the spread of ISIS-linked groups across North Africa are about. They want the caliphate back, and they want it bigger and better than it was the last time. The question that Western leaders have to answer is, how far are they willing to go to say no? Are they willing to have another Gates of Vienna? Are they willing to stand up and say, not this time? Are they willing to stand up and say, your values do not match ours? Or are they so embroiled in multiculturalism that they simply cannot say those things? That's my fear, is that they cannot say those things, and therefore they cannot act in a way that will stop the march of the caliphate.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.